Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens think that everyone on Earth has to serve them. And in this episode, guys, Karens are at it again, getting embarrassed left and right. I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. Last night, I found myself pulling into my local Walmart. The parking lot was packed, and I've never seen this place so full of people. As I was trying to check out, there was even a woman in the self-checkout area with an entire cart packed to the brim, trying to beep 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 herself out. I had to go back and forth through a few rows to even find a parking spot, and I chose a parking spot with the cart propped on top of the curb next to it. Being the good Samaritan that I am, I pulled the cart off the curb and walked it into the store, since I was gonna need a cart anyway. Apparently, that's where I went terribly wrong. I approached the door the same time a woman arrived a few heartbeats ahead of me. I was off in my own world, plotting out the most efficient route through the aisles in order to get all the stuff on my list, when lo and behold, a wild Karen appeared. Not from an unchecked corner, but right in front of me. I was shocked by the woman as she grabbed my cart, trying to wrench it from my hands. I say to her, "Excuse me, ma'am, what are you doing?" Karen says, "I'm taking this cart that you brought back to the store, and why the hell did you only bring one? There are so many carts still left out there, and so many people are waiting for a cart." I replied, "Well, I only needed one cart, so I brought the one that was next to my car." The Karen, oblivious to what I said, bitchiness intensifying, while her hand is still exerting pressure on my cart, says, "You shouldn't be wasting time bringing one cart at a time back from the corrals. No wonder you guys only get paid minimum wage. If it were up to me, you'd be paid no wage. Now let go and give me my cart." Now I should mention that at this point, I'm literally wearing a military uniform. So I look down at my chest and then back up to her and say, "Lady, I'm wearing a military uniform. This isn't hunting camouflage. It says US Air Force on my chest. What part of this uniform makes you think I work at Walmart?" At this point, her eyes are doing their best deer in headlights impression while she's reaching peak bitchiness. And she says to me, "Well, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. Why can't you just give me this cart and get another?" To which I respond, "Well, why can't you just walk down there and get a cart and stop being a bitch to random people?" Now, I do realize that that was a bit harsh, but I was polite at the outset, only escalating my harshness to meet her bitchiness. In the moment, it was the only way I saw to feasibly break through her armor of insolence and stymie the bitchiness that seemed to drive everything she said and did. Fortunately, it worked, as in her speechless shock, her grip on the cart faltered, allowing me to break contact and enter the store to execute my shopping. Guys, I know I say this a lot, but Karens really need to pay attention to what people are wearing. Like, I can understand a t-shirt and jeans, right? Like, that can maybe make someone look like a Walmart employee. But a full-on military uniform? Like, that's not even close to any store employee's uniform at all. I was out running errands this weekend when I got my IDontWorkHereLady experience. I was at the pet store, ready to stock up on scratching pads for my cats and snackos for my doggos. I'm always on the lookout for new friends to give some good ear scratches to at pet stores, so I cover lots of ground, looking up and down the aisles without actually holding much in my hands. I guess that's what drew the attention of this Karen, since it seemed like she tracked me through a couple of aisles before she could catch up. The initial interaction was the standard fare. "Where is this? I don't know. Why not? You should. I don't work here. Statements ignored. Shrillness going to 11, etc." But then this Karen did something weird. She listened. I had repeated once again that I didn't work here, and she replied, "Fine, you don't work here, but you're still an ass, and I want to talk to your manager wherever you do work." And in my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh, really now?" And this is where things got fun. I replied, "Well, you're in luck, because I actually work next door. I was just trying to grab some stuff in here on my break. My manager's on shift. You can go talk to him right now." With a triumphant look on her face, she sneered, "Well, we'll see if you'll be finishing that shift." And then she strode out, and I kid you not, she left her cart right there in the frickin' aisle with some stuff in it. With that, I continued on my way, finally found the scratching pads, gave a few ear scratches, and I was ready to head to the front checkout when I saw Karen storming down the aisle towards me again, and the fury on her face was priceless. The woman huffed and puffed, and she blew nothing down as she trundled up to me screeching. The woman screams at me, "They said they have no idea what you're talking about. They don't even know who you are." That's when I say to Karen, "Oh yeah, I don't work there either." Karen says, "Then why the F did you tell me you did?" I say to her, "I don't know. I figured it made as much sense as you thinking I worked here." Then, at that moment, going beyond what anyone would consider to be a rational thought, she reaches for me. And guessing by her hand's track, she was going to try to collar me. Now, one thing that Karen doesn't know is that I'm in the military. And while I've never seen direct combat being an Air Force officer who flies a desk, I do understand the basics of various infantry things. For example, the concept of fire superiority. In the case of projectile warfare, often the best way to stop the bad guy from throwing killy stuff at you is to throw an overwhelming amount of killy stuff at him. He ducks down behind killy stuff blocky things, and then you can maneuver without the killy stuff coming at you. This principle can be applied in many other aspects of life as a way to prevent things from happening. I chose to apply it here. As soon as Karen reaches for me, I engaged my military voice. And I said, "Lady, if you touch me, I will effing end you." Hearing that, Karen's hand froze in mid-air and she said, "What did you just say?" I repeat myself and say, "You heard me. I will end you." Karen then pulls her hand back, her eyes locked on mine, fear finally creeping in behind them, and she stutters. I then say to her, "I'd better be going before you do something that you can't come back from." I left her frozen in place. I went to the front, paid for my items, and then went about my merry way. The dogs enjoyed their snacks, and the cat attacked the bag that I brought everything home in. And since I didn't need to use my AK, it was a good day. I'll admit, guys, I've read so many of these stories, and OP sending Karen to another store was absolutely brilliant. And if only he ducked out of there quicker, right? Never to be seen by Karen again. That would have been the greatest escape ever. But I do want to know, guys, like, what exactly was Karen going to do if OP did work at the other store? Like, what could she have possibly said to management there? "Oh, one of your employees chose not to help me in another store that he doesn't work at. I demand you fire him." Like, calm down, Karen. You don't have that much power over anyone. So yesterday, I was told by my dad to stop by his work and change my tires from winters to summer ones. My dad works at an old junkyard. I arrived just when they were having lunch, so maybe that's why things had come to the point they came. I loaded the tires and tools on a cart and moved it closer to my car. Around 5 minutes in, a car that I've never seen arrives, and it looked really strange because it was the typical family BMW SUV, with a female coming out of it. So I'm looking at her like, what is she going to do? When she came close enough to me, she could hear my car radio blasting. So she gestured to lower the volume, so that's exactly what I did. And the conversation went something like this. I ask her, "Can I help you?" Karen says to me, "Yes, when can I come and pick my car up?" At this point, I don't know that she thinks I'm an auto shop, so I say to her, I don't know, whenever you want, I guess." Karen says, "Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna go to the store and buy some stuff. I'll be back in 15 minutes. She then proceeds to leave her keys on my cart and she walks off. By now, I'm kind of confused what she wants from me. I assume she wanted me to look after her car. After maybe 30 minutes, she comes back with 2 bags and she says, "Are the tires changed?" I say to her, "What tires?" Karen says, "The tires on my car, of course. Have you changed them already?" The woman was screaming at me, so I replied, "Why the hell would I change your tires?" Karen says, "Because you've already pulled tires out of your shop and you have the tools out, so that means you're open for business." At this point, I kind of realize what's going on. And I say to her, "Do I look like I'm an auto shop?" And here's where Karen makes a big effing mistake. She says, "Are you deaf or what, you fat moron? You have the tools and tires out on a cart, so shut up and change my tires. I'm not in the mood for games." And this is the point where I snapped and said, "Who do you think you are? Or who do you think you're talking to? You'd better get the F out of here before I call the cops." Karen responds, "How effing dare you speak like that to me? You're lucky my husband isn't with me, otherwise he would F you up." And at this point, my dad's coming out of the back door because you wouldn't hear us screaming only if you were deaf. My dad asked what's going on, and Karen says, "Your employee is refusing to change my tires, and he's being very rude and disrespectful to me." My dad says to her, "He's not our employee, and we don't change tires here. What are you doing back here anyway?" Karen says, "I'm here to get my tires changed." My dad then tells her that we're not an auto shop, so leave the yard right now. Karen then says to us, "So you guys are rude, disrespectful, and screaming at me, instead of telling me that you're not an auto shop?" At this point, I saw her getting ready to slap me, so I did the most simple and probably the best thing I could do. I just raised my hand, so when she went to hit me, she hit the tire iron I was holding. After that, she screamed in pain. She just ran to her car and drove off. Yeah, that's a good way to get your car stolen, right? Like, just drop it off at a random place you think is a shop and give some random person whom you've never met the keys. Like, I'm hoping at the very least she had a set of tires in her car, because if she didn't, guys, demanding someone just change her tires would be the dumbest thing ever. Like, change them to what, Karen? Now, this happened about 7 years ago. And while I did work in the same building, I was not a janitor. I was about 19 or 20 when I worked in the hospital's food service department as a food service aide. And since the hospital was small, we were the only food option available in the building, aside from vending machines on the 4th floor. We had a small cafeteria, and the kitchen was responsible for making food for both the hotline in the cafeteria and the food for the patient rooms. We were always understaffed, and we ran ragged all the time. I worked as a dishwasher, a cook in the cafeteria, and during lunch and dinner shifts, I delivered food to patient rooms. Now, because I worked in the food service department, I never got mistaken as a janitor, thanks to the different uniforms. My department at the time wore ugly barf green uniform shirts, black uniform pants, hairnets, and a stupid black chef hat, and black shoes. Janitors wore a bright blue polo, black pants, and black shoes. Plus, 9 times out of 10, they either had a cleaning cart with them or some kind of cleaning supply. Trust me, this is all important. Now, I was used to getting ordered around by the nurses. It was all part of being at the bottom of the totem pole. However, patients or their families were most of the time very nice and happy to see us since we were bringing food. But on this particular day, I was in a pretty foul mood. An entitled nurse was threatening to call my boss if I didn't hand over extra pre-made sandwiches for her and her crew, when she knows we're not allowed to do that. It was late, and I was running behind on serving patients their dinner. So I was on my 1st floor, and I was ready to go get another food cart to go to the ICU when I feel a harsh tap on my shoulder. It's a Karen, and she says, "Ugh, finally. Do you know how long I've been calling the nurses station for you people?" I say to her, I'm sorry, were you trying to get a hold of food service?" Karen says, "No, I've been calling for you. Do you know how long I've been waiting for you?" Now, I do want to note that back then, I wasn't very good with people. If anything, I used to run away from conflict. But thanks to this place, I was growing a bit of backbone due to the bitchy nurse staff. And because she caught me in a bad mood, I probably had a "what the F do you want" look on my face. I say to Karen, I'm sorry, how can I help you?" Karen says, "My relative has been waiting for someone to clean their room. I've been paging the nurses station over and over again, but they won't call someone. Someone's about to get fired." Now, I would have felt sorry for her had she been nicer to me, since I knew this problem rather well. At the time, the nurses of that floor were entitled and horrible. Many had gotten fired for improper care of patients, and I left a couple of years later. But thankfully, the place is much better now. But back then, this was a common complaint. But since she was being an ass to me, I really didn't feel like BSing her with a fake smile and taking her complaint seriously. The woman had this aura about her that screamed, "I'm better than you." And I personally can't stand that. I say to her, "I'm sorry, I'm sure they called for someone. If you wait, I'm sure..." Karen then interrupts me and says, "No, I'm not waiting. You need to get off your lazy ass and do your job. You serve the public, so you will listen to what I tell you." At this point, I realize what she's talking about, and I say to her, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not a custodian, I'm in food service." Karen says to me, "Stop making excuses and go clean that room. There's pee everywhere. And while you're at it, get your manager. You suck at your job." That's when I begin to explain to her, "Ma'am, you need to keep your voice down. I work in food service. So I'll go get someone from..." Karen interrupts me again and says, "Shut your mouth. How dare you talk to me like that? You work in this hospital to serve people like me. Now do what I tell you." I pretty much go back and forth with her for a couple of minutes, trying to insist that I don't work as a janitor, and this prompts my supervisor to come to the floor. He was probably wondering why I was taking so long coming back to pick up a cart. And he comes off the elevator and he sees me with the crazy Karen. I almost had the urge to turn and run into the elevator when Karen turns to see him standing there. And Karen says, "Are you this girl's manager?" My supervisor says, "Yes, how can I help you?" Karen says, "I want her fired. She's lying and saying she won't clean my relative's room." Looking confused, the supervisor looks to me as if wanting to know what happened. I look at him and mouth silently, "Help me, she's insane." My supervisor then looks to Karen and says, "Ma'am, she isn't a custodian. She's delivering food trays to hungry patients. Now please keep your voice down or I will call security." At this point, Karen goes completely crazy and she says, "How dare you? This employee has lied to me and tried to assault me. What the hell kind of place is this?" My supervisor says again, she's a food service aide who more than likely has to get food for your relative and other patients. The food's getting cold, so please leave her alone to do her actual job. This apparently pissed her off more as she began to yell in his face, and the supervisor just told me to go to the kitchen and ask one of the other aides to finish delivering food. I found out later that she was escorted off the property by police and that she was blacklisted by the relative from coming to see them. It turns out she was right outside their room and they were so embarrassed and angry about her actions that they told the hospital staff to move them to another room and to inform security to keep her from coming back to see them. She didn't take this too well as she kept coming back on site and cops were called twice afterwards. What a rude woman, guys, and I can't stand it when people like that talk down to service workers. You work in the hospital to serve people like me, now obey me. Yeah, that'll make employees want to help you even more, Karen. And what I've learned from reading all these stories, guys, is never entertain people like this. If I were in OP's shoes, I would have said, "You're absolutely right, ma'am. Let me get this cleaned up right away." And then walked off and proceeded to do my actual job. So here's a bit of backstory. Me and a friend were going out for lunch, and the people that were the waiters always had a white shirt and always seemed to have jeans on. On this day, I was wearing a very similar getup of light gray shirts and some Calvin Klein jeans. The restaurant we were going to, I had been to a couple of times, and I knew the people who ran the place. Me and my friend had just been seated, and that's when I get up to use the bathroom. I asked him to order me the deluxe burger combo with a Coke if the waiter came by. My friend said okay, and I went to use the bathroom. After I came out of the bathroom, I start walking towards the table I was seated at. On my way, I hear a lady's voice go ahem, and I just walk by, thinking that she was talking to someone at her table. But that's when I hear a scratching noise of chairs on the ground, and a couple of seconds later, I feel 2 fast taps on my shoulder. I turn around, and this is where it goes down. The rude lady says, "Ahem, mister." I turn around and say, "Yes?" Karen says, "You need to take my order. It's getting busy, and I'm not sure where my waiter is." To which I reply, "I'm not a waiter." Karen says, "But obviously you are a waiter. Look at your clothes." Now yes, I do look like the other waiters, and I do understand why someone would be mistaken, but not this mistaken. I tell Karen, yes, I may look like one of the waiters, but I'm not a waiter, I can assure you. I then try to walk off, but this woman forcibly tugs on my shirt, pulling me back. She then says to me, "I want you to take my order. I'm getting hungry and I want my food." I say to her again, "I said I'm not a waiter. Now leave me alone." That's when I pull away and start walking to my table, and the rude lady is visibly angry. And she goes to tug on my shirt again, but she misses and tumbles to the ground out of her chair. She then stands up and says, "How dare you push me? I want to speak with your manager." At this point, her husband says that maybe she should calm down. People start to notice what's going on, and they're watching with intent, including my friend. The woman then looks at my back pocket, and she sees a sketchbook that I always carry around. I'm an artist, so it's always good to have one, so when an idea pops in my head, I can draw it on the spot. I also carry around art materials with me all the time, but those are in my backpack, which I left at the table. The woman goes and grabs my sketchbook out of my pocket, and she starts flipping through it. She then says out loud, "Why aren't there people's orders in here? It's all drawings." She says it like it's a bad thing to have drawings in a sketchbook, and it also clearly says sketchbook on the front. I scream at her to give it back to me, and she says, "No, I'm gonna report you to the manager for not taking orders and drawing in the notebook instead. I'll get you fired." Karen had a devilish grin on her face as she starts walking towards the other waiter in the room at the time. That's when my friend stands up and walks over to the Karen and says, "Give him his sketchbook back. It's his, not yours." He then takes it out of her hands and gives it to me. Little did we know, another waiter in the room at the time had seen the whole thing, and he went to get the manager. The manager came back to the room and starts talking to the Karen. Me and my friend decide not to stick around and to take the opportunity to get out of the restaurant while Karen's busy. I never did get that deluxe burger combo I wanted. It takes one Karen to ruin a good meal, doesn't it? And guys, I found it absolutely hilarious that she went to grab OP's shirt a second time, fell on the ground, and had the audacity to scream that she was pushed. Like, by who, Karen? My goodness. Like, that poor husband of hers was probably like, "Yep, she's at it again." But hey, some people do get a little bit nutso when hungry, right? So I can kind of understand why Karen did what she did. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where OP inherits a mansion and the rest of his family goes bonkers because he doesn't deserve it. Go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.